Hi everyone, welcome to my green closet. This is the start of a new mini-series on wool. Many of my thoughts around buying wool have changed, which we're going to chat about in this video, and I also have some videos lined up where I'll be bringing you with me to a regenerative wool farm and showing the sheep to garment process of making wool clothing. I'll also be explaining what certification you definitely need to look out for, sharing an example of a brand who is actually using wool in a sustainable and responsible way, and testing the claim that wool can keep you comfortable in summer, which I'm honestly pretty skeptical of. So my thoughts about wool have really evolved and changed over the years, going back and forth from it's good to it's bad to it's good. Basically 10 years ago, when I was taking a textile science course, I first learned about all of the unique and useful properties wool has. It's really an incredible fiber when it comes to things like thermal regulation, absorption, wicking, antimicrobial, anti-odor properties. Basically, a lot of sports and performance synthetic fabrics are trying to recreate the properties that wool naturally has, but typically not doing a very good job of it. Wool is also easy to dye, especially with natural dyes. So this was really appealing to me when I was exploring natural dyeing. It is very versatile and can be used in many ways, such as knit, woven, felted, and wool can literally last lifetimes. So all of these things were something that I was initially very interested in as a natural, durable, long-lasting, and biodegradable fiber to make clothing from. But then I also started learning about how wool was farmed and the animal cruelty, lack of care, and intensive factory farming that can happen in the industry. And that was not at all something that I wanted to support. The wool industry can also be very unsustainable. Sheep produce methane, and wool farming has contributed to overgrazing and land degradation, also water pollution. So with that knowledge, I decided that the fiber properties and benefits of wool did not outweigh the animal welfare and sustainability issues, and this wasn't something that I wanted to buy. Even though I found wool a nice material to wear and work with, I did not want to support all of the negative aspects. But then, over the years, I've been able to visit some wool farms and seen animals who are very well cared for and farmers who are conscious of reducing their environmental impact and who truly love their sheep and do everything they can for their health and well-being. So I knew that it wasn't all wool that came from unethical practices. However, when you're buying a piece of clothing from any store, you almost never get any information on where the fibers actually came from. So even though some farms might be doing things right, I still didn't want to buy wool. So my perspective on wool for many years was that I would only buy wool clothing secondhand or yarn directly from a farm where I knew the animals were treated well. But that is very difficult to do. And there was really only one clothing company at the time, Izzy Lane, that I genuinely felt was doing things in a responsible way and had the animals' best interests at heart. So then fast forward a few years and the concept of regenerative agriculture becomes more widely known. And if you're not familiar with it, regenerative farming is extremely important in combating the climate crisis. It's a much more holistic approach to agriculture. It focuses on soil health and understanding the symbiotic relationships that happen between the soil, plants, animals, insects, to create a healthy environment that isn't just extractive and destructive. And there have been studies which have found that through regenerative agriculture, we could potentially sequester over 100% of the CO2 the Earth produces annually. Like, that is huge. There is a potential to actually start reversing some of the impact we've been having on the planet. And where wool comes in is sheep or other fiber animals can play a key role in regenerative agriculture. And I'm actually visiting a regenerative wool farm very soon and will be creating a video about it. So please let me know if you have any questions about regenerative wool farming or anything that you would like to see at the farm or regarding wool processing. I think it's going to be very interesting, and I can't wait to share the experience with you. Anyways, learning about regenerative farming and how wool can be integrated into a system that benefits everything, including the animals, I definitely saw that creating wool clothing can be done in a much better way. I also want to note that wool for me is also different than other animal agriculture because the fiber animals don't need to be killed. They can live long lives, and sheep in many cases need to be shorn for their own comfort. And then with all of the great properties of wool, it makes sense to utilize this fiber. And I think as long as the sheep are well cared for, it can be a very symbiotic, mutually beneficial relationship that you don't get with other types of animal agriculture. Like with so many issues in the fashion industry, I feel like I'm always talking about this, but it often comes down to cost and volume. So if you are trying to produce and sell wool sweaters for as cheap as possible and sell as many as possible, then of course there is going to be intensive, exploitative farming and clothing production. But there are also businesses and brands working with a very different model where the goal is carbon negativity, healthy animals living good lives, healthy soil and crops, and a wool sweater that you can actually keep and wear your whole life. So in part 2, we're going to chat about what to look for when purchasing wool clothing to make sure that you are supporting a responsible supply chain. So stick around for that next week, and also let me know in the comments what you'd like to see or learn about on my visit to the regenerative wool farm. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.